sans ton envie de bouger. Cette danse, c'est Ladies Night, tu es à l'honneur. Allons, viens, danse, je m'éveille sous ta sensualité. Donne-moi une...
Just before 5 p.m. on January the 12th, 2010, the worst natural disaster in the history of the Western Hemisphere struck the poorest nation in the Western Hemisphere. Port-au-Prince, the capital of Haiti, was devastated. I called several organizations in the hope that I might be able to go be of service, and I was happy when AHVED called me back and said that their flight was leaving on Thursday morning at 7 o'clock. It was Monday afternoon when I got the news, so it was a rush. But thankfully Garfield and all the staff at the office helped me get boxes and bags and supplies and vaccines and everything together for the flight of a lifetime. The next week was definitely the most challenging in my life, and I wanted to share it with you guys. The next 25 minutes kind of chronicles everything that happened. We drove for about 2 hours to Port St. Lucie, where the flight left for Haiti. We had a bunch of supplies, boxes, surgical supplies, and I met 29 other medical providers at the airport, people I've never met before, but by the end of the week we were very good friends. And we gathered at the Missionary Flights International headquarters, where the people were just wonderful. Some great people who just wanted to get help for Haiti. They organized food and supplies for us and made it easy. Stopped off in the Bahamas on the way to refuel the plane. Then we landed in Haiti. Oh, it was hot. It was dusty. It was just a sight to see. The airport was desolate. Nobody at the counters. These are the counters there. The only person I saw come behind the counter was this lady who came and ate 3 mangoes and then left. And that was it. There nobody else. We had to unpack our own luggage from the plane. This was a plane that was donated for the services by NASCAR drivers. So it was really good that they did that for us. The flight was free, and we just had to bring all our supplies. The airport, as I said, was desolate. It was dirty. There was garbage everywhere. This is the parking lot for the airport. And then we headed off to Port-au-Prince on the way to what was initially supposed to be our destination of St. Mark, a hospital there that was supposed to have a lot of orthopedic patients. When we got there, however, apparently they were not needing services there because the operating room was overwhelmed. So we eventually went on to another hospital. This is some pictures of Port-au-Prince with rubble everywhere, dust, people, just devastation, people just sitting, crying, lying around, doing just nothing. It was a very, very sad and desperate looking place. Got to the hospital, St. Mark, and this was the ward that we first got to. The children dying literally before our eyes, suffering in an order of magnitude that I had never ever seen before. Everyone had a story to tell, but they were not anxious to tell it. Children were starving. They were starving before the earthquake, and now it was just worse. This little girl lying on the bed here, she eventually died. She had 2 broken hips, and they were broken during the earthquake. We came 10 days after, and her legs still hadn't been attended to. This is a funeral service. Many funeral services that I saw. This young man had a thyroid tumor for the 5 years before we came, and he eventually had it removed, but he probably will not survive. This was the house we first stayed in St. Mark. Notice the gutter. There were two young boys cleaning the gutter, putting the dirty sewage up onto the roadside, only to have rain come and wash it back down into the gutter. This is the hospital that we stayed at. The entrance to the hospital, it was just absolutely awful. It made Port of Spain General and Kingston Public Hospital look like the Ritz-Carlton. That eventually turned out to be my little area where I worked. This is the ward. Because there was so much to be done, I decided that I would make my own little pediatric workstation. There was no pediatric ward because all the beds were occupied by trauma patients. So this is my pediatric station. I got a table, just a metal table, and I put some chucks, some soft padding on the table. Eventually, after I changed the chucks several times and ran out of paper, I ended up putting children on the plain old metal table. But I also put together this supply table with all my stuff that I brought from the office. It was a really, really efficient workstation, and I was very proud of it. I had diapers for the children who didn't have any, and I looked out into this courtyard every day and just saw people just trying to survive. It was rough. These are part of the team that came with me, wonderful people just wanting to help, doing everything for the people of Haiti. They were exceptional. So a lot of suffering in that courtyard. Ambulances coming and going, people just sitting around waiting to be helped. Here's a man, his leg eventually had to be amputated, waving flies away from his leg. This is the ambulance, believe it or not. This is the dog that lay under the ambulance most of the day. He spent a lot of time under my table as well. This is the inside of the ambulance, and that's where you'd actually put a patient. This is a little girl who had most of her left arm cut off. I didn't take a really good picture of it, but it was so deep that she really should have a skin graft. The hospital ward, we're just plain suffering. This young man had his head cut by a piece of galvanized during the earthquake. You could literally touch his skull. He also had a broken leg. This little baby had an abscess because of a wound in the leg. The abscess hadn't been drained in a week and a half till we got there. This is Carl. Carl was my friend. He would translate for me. He's from Jamaica. He happened to be visiting his brother in Haiti, and we changed his bandages, healed his wounds. That's his brother who he was visiting during the earthquake. This lady had to have her arm amputated. She just had no movement in her fingers. She's only like 23 years old and no left arm. This is the toilet. The toilet was in plain view of everyone. Everybody just would go in and come right back out. No washing of the hands, nothing. There was no water to wash your hands. I didn't wash my hands for 3 days, and I didn't have a shower for a week. This old man came up to me. Basically, you could touch the bone in his foot, his leg. You can also touch the tendon. He had a puncture wound all the way through to the other end of his foot. Cleaned his foot and got him bandaged. This doctor here, everyone, as I said, had a story. She's a doctor, lives in New Jersey, sent her children down to stay with their parents, with her grandparents, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, the earthquake came and killed one of her 3 children. And here she was helping other people, not necessarily thinking of her own pain throughout all of this. It's amazing what these people went through and how they managed to be gracious and just wonderfully strong throughout all of this.
C'est Ladies Night, tu es à l'honneur.